Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Thanks for having me be a part of your podcast today.
I'm so excited. As I was prepping for this conversation, I was like, I don't know if there's any way to have more fun than my last call with you. I like, we got off that call. I'm like, we didn't even talk about our businesses, like in the like very slightest. We got it so far, so fast into just what is this? What's life all about? And I just had a blast, man. And I'm excited because, one of the phrases that you had said as we were chatting is the business of life. And so I don't know if we want to start there or just jump right in the deep end, but I obviously want to get people to know a little bit about your background and all that kind of stuff. But you can either start there or just maybe pick off right off of the phrase in the statement that you were telling me right before we hit record.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we when you say the business of life, right? So life, first of all, in and of itself, is our ability to exist. That the fact that we're living, breathing, alive, right? That's life, right? Then the things that we do with life, that's a whole nother story, right? And so to me, that business of life is now, okay, what are we doing with the time that we have here whilst we're on this planet? And I think what I was sharing with you is that um you know uh there's so many institutions, there's so many universities that are geared to help a person and help businesses grow and flourish. And
Hmm.
so the whole aim of that is that whole economic engine around that, right? Generate revenue, generate profit, recycle that whole thing. And so how can we take all the amazing tools that are there to grow a business and turn that to our own life, and how can we operate our own life very similar to how a business operates? And that might
Hmm.
sound in some cases maybe a bit cold, but when as we can dive deeper into it, there's just so many amazing tools to help businesses grow that if you apply that to your life can grow just as well, if not better. So
Yeah, and I would say it's the opposite of cold. Like that was the last adjective I would use about our conversation that like literally felt like we've been deep souls that have known each other forever, and yet it was our first conversation. And we are going to unpack this. And before we do, Matt, why don't you just give everybody just like a cliff note version of like your background? How'd you get to what are you doing today? Because we'll obviously go back and unpack your thought process and how you built your thought process and your perspective today. But what are you up to these days?
yeah, so presently I'm the co-founder and CEO of an apparel company called Sportiqe. It's a lifestyle apparel company that really focuses on curating apparel collections in the destination channel and also direct to consumer. Started the company in 2006. Prior to that, was director of merchandise for the Phoenix Suns and Arizona Diamondbacks. So, cut my teeth in professional sports. Had a pretty much a dream job. Thought that was what I was going to do, but really felt the tug to really embrace my entrepreneurial spirit and really see, okay, the things that I've done for others can I do for myself and others as well. And so that's been a constant journey now for the last 17 years of doing that.
And so, as we embark upon this topic, Matt, is so many times like when I meet people, I mean, well, let me rephrase this. Business owners and leaders have a disproportionate amount of ripple effect into the things that they're doing because of the leverage of their team, their ecosystem, their stakeholders. You and I dove a lot into, and we'll cover some of this ground of like the mindset, leadership, all these different things. Where did you come up with your view on what it means to integrate business and life and essentially live the life that you're living right now and how diligent you are in trying to live it? I know that's a loaded question, but I'm just trying to figure out, does
Well,
that,
I
does that
mean,
make sense?
yeah, it does make sense. I think it just starts with your own humanity first and foremost, what am I trying to do as a human being on the face of this earth? What is it that I'm striving for, and what is it that I'm wanting, right? And when you really unpack and peel back the layers of that, what I want, what you want, what every human being want, it's the same thing. We want to be
Mm.
happy. We want to experience amazing things whilst we're on this planet. We want to engage, in an impactful way with our family and friends and community. Just have like amazing, experiences. And so, um, when I wasn't having that, you know, it really was an alarm bell for me. Like, hey, something is wrong. And when I say, I wasn't having that, I was dealing with anxiety and, bouts of depression and just challenges around, enjoying, life, right? And I feel like, that is really the goal. And if that's what I'm striving for, and I think every human is striving for on some fundamental level, as you build a business and you bring people in, if can you answer that fundamental need that they're having too? And if we can do that within our culture, we can build and grow something, very fun and impactful, not only for the consumer but also for ourselves.
Hmm. What what happened where you felt that or that alarm bell was going off? Like, what specifically did you feel stuck in that wasn't jiving, that felt that you were in a mismatch?
Yeah, I mean, I had a pit in my stomach. There was some paralyzing. There was kind of paralyzing, in terms of movement in accomplishing things, and these were all happening whilst I was in college. So this was my college experience, so to speak. And I think the big kind of aha epiphany for me was where I was really striving to do well in school, wanting to get a good education, wanting to get a job, wanting to do all the things that I'm being pushed, to do, whether that was from family or society and friends. I was really struggling internally because even on the outside, I was accomplishing some of these things, but inside, I just did not feel good. And there was this kind of uh, I guess you would call it an epiphany where there was this moment where I was able to see me having everything that I was striving for: a job, a family, a house, um, car, money, like all the idyllic things that you strive for, that define quote unquote success in the external environment. And I had seen myself with all of this stuff, but I still was feeling the way I was feeling, which was pit in my stomach, having anxiety, not confident in things of that nature. And so to me, this epiphany was, okay, if I had all these things, all the things that this dream you're supposed to strive for, but I still felt like this, like what's the point?
Hmm.
And so that was really, a pivotal moment in my life because everything shifted from um, wanting all those things to first solving the internal piece. Right. And so what I said to myself was, if I had inner peace, then I can do anything. That would be the tops. And
Hmm.
so that's really where my focus went, to solve that. And it to still today, it is what I continue to look to solve, because even though today I have it, tomorrow's another day. It's a
Hmm.
new day, and
Hmm.
who knows what could happen. We're so fragile as human beings that we can get knocked off, in any second with something that happens, in our life. So really having that foundation of inner peace, and then everything else, can happen. And so that means I can still strive for all the goals that I was wanting. But I'm anchored in that.
What really matters? Like, what a
Yeah.
concept, right? Oh, and I well articulated, Matt, and I appreciate for that, because that's a wonderful container for the conversation, because that's about how we started. I was like, oh my God, me too. When I was a kid, I was like, like surrounded by chaos. And I was just like, what the hell is all the point of all this? And nothing was making any sense. So when you explained your perspective, and I was like, it's the new goal. Like, why, like, what are we striving for? And I don't know if we talked about this last time, Matt, but on Naval, I can never pronounce his last name, but he's got this quote of, no amount of money that Bezos or Elon or anybody has will buy you a healthy mind, a healthy relationship, or what is it? A healthy mind, or peaceful mind, healthy body, and good relationships, no matter amount. And then I was explaining to you kind of what my insights from interviewing so many people that have accomplished the worldly success, and they're miserable, their purpose, their passion, all these things that they didn't really know. They were just kind of solving for the surfacey stuff. So that like that feeling, because that's how it manifested in me too, is like this feeling that won't go away. So like, how did you start exploring what to do with that? Because I think a lot of people will just do what the default is, right? We've got these pathways in our brain that's like, hey, revenue, gross profit, employee
Yeah.
count, shipping products. But then
Yeah.
all of a sudden the goal is different and there's no rule book. How did you start to solve like getting rid of this pit?
Well, it's a great question. There's a lot to unpack there. Let's put a pin
come
in
on.
the let's put a pin in the revenue profit things. I want to circle back to that as an analogy. But where I started was that now became the focus. Solving, getting to this inner peace, this feeling of freedom, this true feeling of being happy and content in my life. And so I needed help. And there's a great book, and I didn't have this book at the time, but it is exactly what I employed was, if you have to, the book is called Who Not How, and it's basically, if you are trying to have to figure out how to do something, you've lost. So who can help? So I started looking for who can help. So there was counselors, there was therapists, there were books, a lot of books that I just dived in and read. I did a lot of writing, did a lot of just internal searching, a lot of questioning, and then just using myself as the test and the barometer, right? Starting to hone in on my intuition, and starting to hone in on different aspects of myself that I was ignoring. So
any examples?
Intuition is a great one, right? Just not following my gut, just letting your mind or someone else dictate a decision or choice, even though you felt to do something, go in a different direction. So really feeling that and then responding to that versus ignoring it, or just letting, because your mind can rationalize anything. Absolutely, anything. It can, so it can easily rationalize what you felt and change it to the opposite. Mm-hmm. So to me, that was a big one. So just really, when I felt that, to really follow that and then see what happened. And so it was, so that was.
Did you ever in that process? Sorry to interrupt, Matt. In that process, did you ever find where your mind wanted you to have thought that you've solved the problem, but then your gut was like, nope, dude, you're not there yet?
Yeah. So the mind is always going to do that. It's always going, and that's, part of the, your ego and whatnot. And so that's why when we get into this revenue profit thing, like ultimately the true richness of us as humans is actually in a feeling. It's not in a thought. It's not in any material thing. And that's why, like, we think when we have $1 million in the bank, we're going to be happy. Well, we actually might be more miserable. And I know plenty of entrepreneurs who got the exit, looked at the bank account, and they actually went the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, because they hadn't solved the internal piece, right? And that to me is the ultimate of what we're trying to accomplish as humans on the face of this this earth, right?
Let's unpack, what does that mean to you? Internal peace. What is it? What is a feeling? What is that? How does it manifest in your body, mind, day?
Well, I think it's just really that feeling content. And then, okay, what is, so let's think about when you're really, really hungry and starving, or take the same example with, thirsty. As soon as you get that glass of water or you get that food in your system, all of a sudden there's just like, there's kind of just like, oh, thank you. Like you finally, was able to quench your thirst or whatnot. I feel like that's the same, internally, where you just feel light, you feel okay. Um, and yeah, there's just a clarity in that understanding around yourself and your life and your purpose around that.
What super helpful. Resonate with that. I've got my thoughts on how I get to that spot, because I want to live in that spot as much as possible. Because I think this is where you and I rallied a lot on our first conversation. Like, same thing with me. Like, I couldn't solve for all the material stuff because it just didn't mean as much to me. I'm like, I have to be happy in myself in this body because I was watching all the chaos. I'm like, I got to do this because this is the most important part. But so I've got my thoughts as far as like how I did that and whether it's right or wrong, or I'm just kind of trying things on. But for you, what were the thing, like, what, in using your water example, so you drink the water, you quench your thirst. So what are the inputs to equal that peace, that contentness that you're talking about? Like,
Yeah, I
does
mean,
that make sense?
yeah, I think for me, it's about putting attention, towards my inner self, right? My heart, versus my mind, right? So then that's you need tools to just kind of really help. You need to, um, really take the focus of what we put out into the outside world, and really pretty much our mind is, our brain. It's constantly being used, it's constantly in motion, and it's constantly looking to solve problems, right? But the feeling inside us just wants to be content, it just wants to be happy, it just wants
Yeah.
to feel
Just
just
shut
wants to feel
off.
good. Yeah, right. So really, just understanding that balance with ourselves. And I think that's the biggest challenge, I think, for humans, is to really be able to connect with that feeling inside of us, listen to that because it's talking to us all the time, but it's quiet. It's just a quiet, pulsing push, right? Where our mind, it's loud, it's proud, it's telling us to go here, it's telling us to go there, not to do that. And so, and as soon as you give attention to, that feeling inside you, it bucks.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does, right? That's
Yeah.
why meditating is so hard, because soon as just the fact to sit down is a hard enough time, because it's gonna buck and tell you, well, you got this on your to-do list, you got to go run this errand, you got to call this person, you got to look at that Instagram, post, and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. And so let's pull that thread of meditation. So, because I would say that you have a strong sense of self-awareness, and I don't know, I'm guessing here, it just didn't happen overnight. So, like, what was the role that meditation played? I want to get into how this manifests into the business too, because, like, this is again, like, how I started. The ripple effect that you as a leader, or we as leaders, have is huge. But focusing on getting our shit together in between the 6 inches between our ears is so important. But, like, where and how did the meditation role play or play a role into your self awareness? And how would you describe self awareness and this constant recalibration that you're talking about?
Well, so going back to the work I started doing, that was probably a good 7, 8 year process of discovery, or searching. You know, I dived into yoga, I dived into martial arts, and again, read a lot psychology, philosophy. Um, but um, I hadn't really mastered this art of quote unquote, you know, meditation, and found a teacher that really ultimately, um, you know, taught me the techniques of what's called self knowledge to really connect with yourself, with yourself and within. And that to me has been the ultimate game changer, because I have a means to be able to, you know, access that, you know, part of myself. And the thing about it is, it takes practice, it takes a focus,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a commitment, to do that to do that every day. And some days are super easy and blissful, and some days are really hard and challenging. And that's just the nature of us, you know, being alive,
It's
right?
part of the
And it's no,
process, right?
and that's the thing. It's no different in business, right? In business, we have to solve problems. We're looking to grow. We're looking to create things. We're looking to deliver value to people. And so again, same approach in business. Can we do that for ourselves? How are we delivering value to us as a human being on this planet? And again, look at certain business practices to be able to help us, whether that's in values, customer service, um, strategy, right? Just mission and a strategy. Do we have a strategy for our own life? That just in and of itself could be a game changer in how we look to grow and experience our time on this
How
planet.
would you unpack that? Like what would be your definition of the strategy of how to manage someone's life then? Like what would be the factors that are part of it?
Well, so let's now go back to the revenue profit, you know, thing. So what's the objective in a business, right? So whether you're selling a good or service, it's to generate revenue. So the goal of that company is to generate revenue, and to, you know, have a profit. You know, and so for a healthy company to grow and have long sustainable growth, it needs to have consistent year over year revenue, even consistent year over year growth and profits, right? And you obviously, before we got on, you were telling me stories of people that, you know, like who have gone, you know, bankrupt. So companies that you know don't have a profit, you know, they'll be, you know, bankrupt. And so when you look at our life, what's the revenue, right? And that revenue to me is like, um, making money, having a job, learning a skill. It could be playing a sport. It could be doing art, music, acquiring things. You know, whether it's a house and cars. Like that's all revenue for a human being, right? And so um, everything that we acquire, that's constant, you know, revenue. And I think that's where the focus is always
Would you put
is
it as like
okay.
material things or vocation or like
It
kind
could
of a
be any of
okay.
those things.
Okay.
It could be getting a degree.
You
It
just like the
to
things that we're out doing that we're
Yes,
kind of just in default mode of
the things that we're doing, right? So now let's get into the profit. The profit, this is my opinion, right? So you can validate this right now on the spot. But to me, the profit is then what is the experience that we're having? Are we
mm,
happy? Are we experiencing gratitude? Um, and and if we're not, if we're experiencing fear, if we're experiencing sorrow, if we're experiencing pain. And what I mean by that is like, look, there's dips in businesses, right? There's highs and lows that happen. There could be a month where a company doesn't make money, right? But over a course of a year, it has to be, you know, profitable, right? So when you look at yourself over a period of time, like what is that profit? And if
mm-hmm.
that's consistently, you know, in the negative in terms of those experiences, like, because again, you can make millions and millions of dollars, but then be super depressed and not happy. Well, then
Mm-hmm.
you're running a deficit business when it comes to your life. I
Ooh,
feel
I
like
love that.
that is the biggest challenge. And, you know, and I watched firsthand, my father do this. And I had a front row seat of someone who was super successful as a dentist, as, building a dental practice, having a family, having, a home, multiple homes, cars, being able to travel and do things, but was not happy. And there was a cost to that. And so I
Do you
think
think
that's,
that's where your pit came from watching that?
well, it started from childhood. It really started from childhood and some trauma, and you know, you know, living in a family where he was, and I grew up in a family with an alcoholic home. So there's a lot there that drove to where that pit, you
Mm-hmm.
know, came from. I will also tell you, in that moment of clarity I had, I also remember experiencing like bliss and like freedom. And I know this might sound crazy, but I remember feeling that when at a very, very young age, 1, 2, 3 years old. And I'm like, okay, so I had actually a frame of reference that
Mm.
this is possible, that this isn't my lot in life to feel this way the rest of my life, and just put a band-aid on it with, some sort, whether it's, medicine or alcohol or something of that,
More cars,
nature.
boats, revenue,
Right.
whatever
Yeah,
the hell it is.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, if I can get more revenue, then this will go away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If I
Well,
just travel to this exotic place, it'll go
post it
away.
on Instagram and show everybody, then
And
I'll
what
be
and what
happy.
and what happens is we get these short-term dopamine effects
Mm-hmm.
of experiencing something amazing in that moment, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah, Matt, I appreciate that share, man. Because like when you and I were talking on our last call, like for the listeners in here, because I've had some long, wonderful conversations with my father over the last handful of years, and he's in a really good spot. However, like when I would, Matt, when you and I were sharing, I watched him buy as much shit as he possibly could: boats, cars, cabins, condos, and I'm like, he's still miserable. So like, that doesn't work. Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the interview with Matt. I love the conversation. I really enjoyed having this conversation with Matt. And I think about what's helped me over the years literally lean into this meditation, thinking about life, really trying to design the life that I want to live on a day by day basis. Obviously, we need the income and we need the equity growth of the wealth that we need, and we eventually need to make an impact. But I think what has really helped me is once I understood how the mechanics of business worked, it allowed me to pay more attention to the things that Matt and I are talking about. So I'm not suggesting that like the way to get the best life that Matt is talking about is to learn mechanical stuff, but it just helped me. So like the Intentional Growth Academy was designed to hopefully eliminate the anxiety of all the mechanical things that truly are like, it's black and white sometimes on how, it's the numbers are black and white and strategies sometimes a little bit more gray, but like there are mechanical things in business that we can always be doing, but we have to get our mindset and our goals and our vision of the life that we want clear. I just got done speaking in front of 10 Vistage groups over the last 2 weeks. And one of the biggest takeaways off of almost all of them was I need to figure out what I need as a leader and as an owner, so that way I can translate that to the rest of the company. That is so important for all of your employees, vendors, suppliers, clients to wake up and they know why you're in business and what you're all for. And it's obviously to make money, but what else? Why are we all here? We spend so much time at work and we have to integrate our family and our mindset and everything. So I would leave you with, go check out the Intentional Growth Academy if you want to jump right in. If not, and you want to dive a little bit more into this without committing to anything, go check out the Intentional Growth Starter Kit, where you can dive into the 5 intentional growth principles, get your scorecard, and then dive into the rest of the podcast archive library. So I appreciate you tuning in, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of the interview with Matt. To your point, I remember being 19, driving in rush hour at 7:15 on the way into Minneapolis in a suit I hated to sell copiers that I thought were stupid. And I was like, this is it? Like, this is what it's all for. So to your point, it's like this like being able to then acknowledge that it doesn't have to be that way. To your point, you had the frame of reference because like as you were going through this journey, then were you constantly like anchoring down and going, I'm trying to get back to that in a sustainable way, where it like. So how were you thinking about that feeling? Like what like when you were trying things on like meditation and you said 7-8 year journey, like how were you kind of shifting into like, oh, I'm now able to experience this an engineered way? Is that maybe too mechanical way of putting it? But like,
Well, I mean, the big thing for me was like, I was telling you the challenges, that pit, like in college, I just had a struggle just concentrating and accomplishing things. So to me, coming out of that and landing a really fun job in professional sports, like that was awesome for me because I really got to dive into a job in an environment that I really liked, and so that also really helped with my day to day, right? So I was enjoying what I was doing as a job. I was enjoying the everything that came with that job, and I loved what I was learning. Um, and whilst I was also then learning about myself,
mhm,
right? Because that's the thing. Like we don't stop. Like it's not like we can really stop. Especially when coming out of college, like you really do. That's like a big part of evolving in terms of your career and things of that nature. And you need experience. You need to start building a better network and things of that nature. So
so so you're talking
that
about the
was never lost on me to continue to do that too.
got it. So as you're getting the profit of life, which is the experience, which by the way, a friend of mine, Ali Nasir, he's got this book called Business Owner's Dilemma, and he talks about ROE, return on experience. So he's
Mm.
actually got an interesting phrase that I don't know if it's as deep into this vein that we're talking about, but interesting way of articulating it, which is the experience. So you're having a lot of fun with this new job. You're interested. It's not college. How were you judging the fact that your return on the profits of life were not where they should be or not on track to where you wanted them to be?
Well, it's a good question. I didn't have this evolved thought back then that I do now around this. To me, it was still a lot of figuring out, who I am, my place, and really what I'm, wanting to, solve. And again, I think what happened to me is like, and I think this is very, very normal. I don't know how best to articulate this other than I think the process of learning and growth is continual. It never stops. I think it's very ingrained to us as humans.
Mhm.
It's a natural process for us to want to get better. And so and I think once we accomplish and achieve something, there's always another level, and it's kind of like the video game, right? You play the game, you get to the next level, you now see a new screen, you get
Mhm.
new challenges, you're faced with all the right. And that's, I feel, life mirrors very much what you can experience in a video game in terms of these levels. And so I kept going through different levels, and then there was points where I'm like, nope, I haven't figured it out yet. I really hadn't figured it out. And um I was in a great spot, but I knew there was still something missing, that I was still hadn't got to the depths of what I was, searching for. And that's again when you need help. We need a teacher. We need books, or we need something to help um, us guide us to find what we're looking for. No different than you were going to school to learn accounting or learn engineering or learn architecture. I feel like we need that for ourselves too when it just comes to understanding how to access us.
So that is a great part I want to pull on is when think about Matt over the last about decade as I have interacted with so many owners and leaders because again there's like this leverage point because your team is big. There's Matt, you've got suppliers, manufacturers, you got business owner peers, you've got your employees. There's a lot of people that you're interacting with where your decisions ripple into those different into the ecosystem. There's not really a rule book for like, hey, by the way, as an entrepreneur, here's how to judge the goal and what you're marching towards. So what we all do is like revenue. And then we just kind of blindly go forward unless people put a lot of hard effort against what you were talking about. And I think about how ridiculous. Go for it. Yeah,
well,
go for it.
It's very interesting that you say that, because that's actually so, like, when you start a business and you're starting from the ground up, like we did with Sportiqe, like that is the goal. You need to get revenue. You need to get sales.
You need to pay your bills, man.
You need to get sales. You need to, you had this idea of how to solve a problem in the marketplace, and which we felt we had a solution around apparel in the destination retail space. Now we need to validate it, and we need to get customers. We need to get them quick, right? So that is the focus. That is completely, the focus. Then it's like, okay, as you start building, you start, obviously, do we have our margins right? How are we managing our expenses? And can we get to the next year? And then can we get to the, and so, so when we look at ourselves, in our own life, like, especially like when we want to learn something, we want to learn something new, whether it's, a sport, like let's just take pickleball. Everyone's looking to learn pickleball, right? You've got to put in time, you got to put in practice, you got to, but then as you learn more how to play, then you get into the strategy, you get into different techniques on spin, where to place the ball, things of that nature. And I think that rings true to, in our own life, right? I had accomplished a lot of things, but I still hadn't got to the next phases of where I wanted to grow. And Ryan, I will tell you, I feel like I'm got so much to learn still in my life. I got a lot to learn and a lot to experience still. So by no means do I feel like I have figured this out. I feel like I have a means to navigate my life in a very impactful way and have an experience that I'm wanting to have, and that experience is, happiness and joy and gratitude. But I want more of that, and I want to continue to build more of that, and I want to surround myself and help people do that too, to whatever degree that means, for them, right? Because I think ultimately, the core of what we need to be doing at Sportiqe is continually getting better as people. And if we are continuing to get better as people, and our culture and adopting to our values, everything else will fall into place in a very impactful way.
So love it, absolutely love it. And I think about, Matt, how you just described your goal, right? Like you just described what good looks like. It's a combination of all those things. Versus if I were to ask Sally or John, other business owner, what their goal is, and they say just revenue, and they're in kind of in default mode network, you know what I mean? Of just like the repeat of the normal business operations, where I would say, kind of just to paint two pictures, because what I want to get is your thoughts of how the business serves you to accomplish what you just described, versus in the other Sally or John example that are, going by kind of the basic metrics. And I, to your point too, I'm not trying to minimize the importance of revenue, gross profit. I mean, I talk about sustainable cash flow and equity valuation, so I know it has to be worth something. But go ahead.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, okay, when we started the business, we were so focused on sales, and then you get to a point like, okay, are we profitable? Because if we can't be profitable, then we actually can't keep going. So I've experienced, okay, we just made a ton of revenue. We did really, really good, but we didn't make any money.
Been there, my friend.
So then it's like, oh, okay. So, and I feel like, unless you're a unicorn, and you just,
You're
take
selling
off.
one
And
hell of a dream, man. 25 years in the
I think
future.
every business experiences that on some level. Your challenges, with profit, because you start spending in the name of generating more revenue, and until you kind of get a pause to see what's the net result, then it's like, okay, that's not going to be sustainable. So now what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We
Mm-hmm.
have a good business. It's been validated, but now we need to really be able to manage it a lot better from a margin standpoint, and then an overhead expense, standpoint, to
Yep.
be able to be profitable.
So I love it. And as I'm thinking about these two examples, is like maybe that's not the right lift off point. I'm what I'm trying to unpack, Matt, is like you're one individual, and here's like the great equalizer is you and me both have 168 hours a week. That's it, man. Like we have 168 hours a week. What are you going to do with it? What am I going to do with it? And then to your point, and this is what is unique about business owners who also work in the job in their company is you have 168 hours. So the business needs revenue, profit, and cash flow, and your life needs revenue, profit, and your experiences that you're talking about. So you have one person that's balancing the business and your life, but 168 hours a week, right? So I think that's where things get out of whack for a lot of people, where the goals become kind of fuzzy. So they're kind of bouncing back and forth and their time is getting burnt up and their experience. So there's this ripple effect that when they're then leading their company, they're not showing up the right way. They're not, you know what I mean? Like it just, you and I both have probably both
Well,
experienced.
I think the problem is we, as humans, I th- I think we tend to solve our the issues that we might have internally by 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 doing external things.
Oh,
So
so true.
and they're two different worlds. And so we think, okay, if we solve this issue of money this way, I can solve it the same way in terms of how I'm feeling, and it never ever will work, ever. So I
That sounds
think,
like you've tried.
yeah, again, this goes back to just testing and
Yeah, right.
experiencing and seeing what's working, in my life. And I think now we get into this whole notion of work-life balance, which is a complete illusion. And you mentioned, I think, what did you say, 168 hours?
Yep.
So I would call that external balance, right? And that has to do with time. So we all have the same amount of time. So now, how are we using our time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what are the choices that we're making using our time? And so most, you know, business owners, and even entrepreneurs that I talk to, they figure out how to best carve out their time with work, with personal time and family, and they slice and dice their calendar and they get it just right and all that kind of stuff. But and so they maybe have now perfectly dealt with time in terms of how much they're spending to grow different areas of their life and business and family. But then internally, they're depressed, they're tired, maybe they're dealing with fear, maybe they're dealing with anxiety, lack of confidence, whatever. So to me, now we're getting into the internal balance,
Mm-hmm.
and those are your emotions. Those are feelings of how you're feeling as a human being, and those are completely different than what's happening with dealing with time, right? So then now we're getting into our psychology, we're getting into our mental health, we're getting into how we're feeling mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And so that now is a different game. We have to
Mm-hmm.
attack that differently than a calendar or time and things of that nature.
Agreed. And I like how you frame that up because the time, to your point, is external. You can slice dice, you can chunk out times and optimize and systematize all that tasks that you're doing with that time. How I've always looked at this, Matt, and I'm curious what you think about this, is so this might be kind of a fragmented thought, but I'm trying it out. So bear with me. So it's like I have an enormous desire to just I need to control my thoughts, man. Like my thoughts are just like, I mean, back
Why?
to, because they like I've experienced through my life is like when they're running rampant, or it's either defaulting more towards negative or more towards fear or more towards anxiety or whatever the hell it is. It's like it's not feeling good. It's not feeling the quench of the thirst that you mentioned with the water. And so for me, I want to have, when I say control, that might be too much of a rigid word, because like I you and I have talked about my meditation practice that I've had now for 3 years, and it's, it's just trying to get centered maybe, but like really like in that 168 hours, the way I think about this, man, is like you have different chunks of activities, whether it's business, personal, whatever, or multiple types inside of activities inside the business, but I have one brain that's going in between all those things throughout that 168 hours. So if I'm a total crazy person inside of all those roles that I'm playing and all those tasks, none of it's going to be enjoyable. And regardless of how much money I have in my bank account. So it's like really trying to get centered and center myself and tie it to striving for the fullest potential to enjoy the experience along the way. So it's really, to your, how another way of putting it is like, I want to feel, and I was mentioning this earlier that I had a thought on, is like when I feel that quench of thirst, when that alignment is when I've got a goal that's worthy, that's not just ego or materialistic based, and then I'm doing the work to experience that come to fruition, and I feel alignment. So it's not complete, but it's alignment of the doing the right things for the right reasons along the way, and knowing that the progress is about satisfactory. And that then clears up my mind, going, these are the different things that I'm doing, and then all is for a reason. It's, and then I can be more present when I'm doing that. And again, that's just like, I don't know if there's any kind of validity in any of that, but like that's where I was talking about the mind and making sure like how that works inside of the integration of life and personal life and work and everything.
Yeah, again, my experience has been you can't control the thoughts.
That's why I knew you were gonna, and
You can
amen,
let
my
them
friend.
go. You can let them. You can let them. You can let them go. But you can't control them. And as fast as one came, another one's gonna be right there. Waiting. It's really
I
where can you
agree.
put your attention and give attention to where they're still there, but if you're not giving it attention, they're gonna just kind of just chill for a bit, right? And I
Right.
think
Okay.
there's
Okay. Okay. Okay.
and
Thank you
there's
for giving me a little bit of a life preserver on this one. Is because I agree with you. I agree with you. That's why I definitely chose the wrong word, which is, so now with that little bit of grace that you gave me, is I don't want like I'm truly speaking only from my own personal perspective right now, is I don't want the whiplash of the emotional roller coaster with all the thoughts that are swooping in and out of my head. So it's more of like the peace, knowing that there's going to be thoughts coming in and out and all these different experiences, but it's going to be some sort of like ability to manage the delayed effect
yeah,
of
and I
reaction.
think that's the key, right? Because I'll use the 80-20 rule. I think and I'm not giving exact percentages. I'm just gonna the 80-20 rule,
Concept.
right?
Yep.
And so to me, it's um is 80% of the time I'm good, and because that there's going to be that 20% where something happens and I'm not on my game, and my mind is taking over, and it's doing this, it's doing that, it's created this scenario, it created that scenario, and it's telling me this story, and you know but do I have the means to, okay, come back to self, come back to home, or quote unquote reality, and then understand, okay, is that real or not? And most of the time it wasn't, you
What are
know
some of the tools that you
and
use to
so
help you think through
yeah,
that?
so I think meditation is a big one, but I think through the meditative practice, to me the biggest thing is being able to connect with my breath in any scenario, in any moment, at any time. And again, that takes an awareness and it takes practice, because I think we talked about this before. Like your mind, is either in the past or in the future. and again, it's looking to solve problems or, look to do something, right? But our breath is present, and that's, to me, where I want to be. I want to be present, and I want to be still to then use my mind as a great tool that it is, right?
Yeah, I love
And
that.
so that, to me, is the experience that I want to have as a human being, is to use this amazing tool that I have for doing some great things in my life. And so and I think that, to me, is, how do I, being able to get rooted back to self. And I think
Hmm.
what happens is, once the mind takes over and we keep going and going, and we don't have that means to get back, it gets challenging. And
How does that impact?
I think that's the biggest drama that we see being played out, with people across, the world.
It's just reactive behavior, left and right, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
just.
because then the further we are away from self, from our own humanity, we can then justify a war. We can justify killing somebody, not, somebody. I mean, we do read in the news someone killed somebody. Like, there's, the further away we are from our own humanity, we can justify,
Mhm,
yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna take someone else's life, which is completely anti-human.
mhm, mhm.
So, um, yeah,
I think, that's great, and I think, how when you're getting centered but to your humanity, which is so funny. I was kind of putting my mind in the mindset in the mind of the listener, and if someone's getting anxiety or a pit in their stomach about sitting and just thinking about your breath, that's the bucking that Matt was talking about.
yes, yeah,
It's like, wait a second, I don't want to do that because I have shit to do. No, no, no.
yeah,
That's exactly why you should.
yeah. That's, you hit the nail on the head. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Huberman's work,
Oh, I have
but
consumed way too much of his
but
stuff.
well, he's got and I don't know. I'm saying him because it's where I had seen it, and I've actually put it into practice. Is there just a simple breathing technique that you can do that really just can kind of level the playing field of what's happening in your psyche. And it's two breaths in and one big breath out, so you're like inhaling twice through your nose and then just exhaling out. And just, so it's like, you can just do it before walking into a meeting, or just before, or maybe if you're in the middle of something challenging. Again, having the presence to do it is
Mhm.
is the big thing. But just,
It's so ridiculous
and
because of
it just,
how simple it is, Matt.
yeah,
And like, I remember, for whatever it's worth, man, I remember 4 years ago when someone was telling me this, and I was just like, sure. And I was just in my head going, yeah,
yeah.
bullshit. And I
So
was so skeptical. And then here I am 3 years later meditating every morning. And I'm
yeah,
like, and I'll catch myself. And the reason you and I are talking about this in this particular point is, it's the tools when it's going crazy. These are the tools that are actually at everybody's disposal, and you don't
yeah,
need to have any tech or
yeah.
anything. It's
And
like you
that,
just
the
stop.
thing to me is, the gateway to so many things to self is through the breath. It's our life force. It's the first thing, that we did when we came into this world. It's going to be the last thing that happens, when we leave. And it's so powerful, but and it's so simple, that the brain's like, come on, give me something.
Give me
Give
some
me
dopamine,
something.
man.
Yeah, or give me, this is too easy. Come on, give it. So it wants a complex problem to solve. And so, but that's the thing. Just taking the time just to connect with one breath, our mind just will buck, and like, no, like, that
I can feel
makes.
it, like literally as you were explaining it. I'm like, I can feel what everybody's feeling right now. I was like, bullshit, guys, move on. It's like, no, this is real. And I think, Matt, it's going back to your point. It's, you know, we've
But
met.
again, it goes back to, like, your desire, right? So we didn't talk about this before, but like, I have this formula on how we move through life. and how we transform and how we create things. And so it's A, if you can picture in parentheses, A+DEF, end of parentheses, times C squared. And so A is awareness, which is half the battle, right? Are we aware of what we want to do? What is our mission? What is our values? What do we want to create? What do we want to have in our life? What, like, just awareness. Just,
Mm-hmm.
someone listening might not have had the awareness that it's as simple as just connecting with your breath, right? So then it gets into DEF, and D is that desire, right? That is the fuel, the passion, the thirst to push us to move towards doing something or wanting to do something. And you can call it grit, right? Having that, that desire to really
The internal
continually.
fire.
Yes, yeah, and we need that as humans, and it's within all of us, right? Um, and then E is effort. We have to make effort. We have to be engaged in what we want to create and what we want to accomplish. We can't wait for someone to do something for us or wait for XYZ to happen or any wait. We have to be engaged. We have to
Mm-hmm.
make effort and take action towards the things that we want to
The
create.
moving
And then,
forward thing that's human, like you were talking about.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And then F is focus, right? How, focused are we in accomplishing and moving in this direction, right? So, if you had a goal to, I have a good friend of mine who loves music, um, and he wanted to learn to play guitar. Never had played guitar before. I think it's now probably 5 years has been passed. He's now performing in coffee shops, and this is a business owner now. He's been an executive, but he taught himself how to learn to play the guitar. He took lessons, but
Cool.
he had the desire, the effort, and the focus, and so he put in so much time. Right? I love to play the conga drums. I got conga drums,
No way. That's
but
awesome.
I play every once in a while, so I'm just okay. There's no way, my desire, effort, focus isn't strong to be. I want to be able to perform or record or create my own music, right? So that desire, effort, focus is really important, because that, to the degree of how strong that is how fast you will create and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then if you start thinking about a business, how to align yourself with people with that same desire, effort, focus, you can start really growing
Mm-hmm.
exponentially and things of that nature. The last one, that C, is choice. Like, this is super, super powerful, right? At the end of the day, I still have to choose to sit down and make that effort to practice and meditate, right? And I'm choosing to grow my business this way. I'm choosing this, but those choices, though, are also microcosms. Just getting out of bed is a choice,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And every little step you take is a choice. Like, and so even when I hear someone say to me, "I have no choice," this is what I got to do. Well, that's your choice. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there are consequences. There's trade-offs that if you chose something else, that would have, a much different result.
You always have a
But
choice, to your
you
point.
always have
It's
a
yeah.
yes.
I love it, Matt. Did I derail you? Or was
No,
that
no.
oh, I think you might have just given the formula of the definition of intentional growth. So like I've never had someone respond to that question with a formula, man. But you know what I love about this, man,
Giving
is
you all the secrets right now.
yeah. What do I owe you? So like it's also like those choices. You'll like this. I actually heard this recently, that the only other thing that's in the present moment besides your breath are your choices. Because your choices now and it's the consequence that are the ripple effect that'll happen in the future. So it's like very interesting, but in order to make that choice, the people have to be aware of what they want, like you're saying, and the desire and the focus and all that stuff to connect the here to the future. Let's move now, with respect in your time, to like how this applies to you as a leader and in your business, because you're not in the business of just selling yoga mats and sitting there doing nothing. I mean, there's obviously businesses to be doing that, but you're in a business and you've aligned with conscious capitalism. I mean, you and I immediately started talking about that because the listeners know how much I'm a big proponent of that. So, like, how does all of this manifest into you as a leader and a business owner, and what you're striving for with the company and your time?
Yeah, I think for me, it's in building Sportiqe, it's like, okay, how can we create the ecosystem that really would be idyllic for humanity to function, knowing there's highs and lows and stress and challenges and things of that nature. And I think for as the company evolved, I think what really, and as I've evolved, I think what's happened was how to really, it starts with culture, and it starts really then with values, right? And so um as soon as you put two people together, like, they're gonna have a culture, and then you have family dynamics, there's a culture, right? So you can either consciously create that, or it's just going to happen because the culture is based on human behavior. It's based on how we're making choices, how we're communicating, how we're treating each other, and then really it starts from the human
Hmm.
aspect. And so when we consciously worked on the values for Sportiqe, in really the ingredients are, to me, are really what drive us as humans fundamentally. They really answer and respond to uh, who we are as human beings. So, for example, um, one of our values is evolve, and that is really to have a growth and learning mindset, and also to have the humility to make mistakes as a means to grow. That we understand that um, failure really are the seeds to success, to really to grow. And when you think about us as humans, I think one huge aspect of our experience on this planet is to learn. Like,
Hmm.
from the moment we're born to the very last breath we take, learning on some level is taking place. It's a continual process of just learning, exploring, experiencing. And so, really having this value of evolve and really embracing, really learning, right? So, how are we learning? How are we growing? How are we getting better that 1%, every day, personally and professionally, and really embracing, that value. Another value is, teamwork. And to me, we all have this notion to be free and to be independent. I think every human on some level, and I every new employee that comes on a Sportiqe, I'll go through our values, and I always start with teamwork, and I'll ask them, "Do you want to be free? Do you want to be independent?" And everyone says, yes. But we are so highly dependent on other people. We're dependent on family, community, society, and whatnot. So when we were a baby, we were dependent on our family to help raise us and provide for us and things of that nature. As an adult, when we go to the grocery store, we're dependent that they're going to have what we want in terms of food and sustenance
By the way, you
and
know
things
that
of that nature.
they got a study now, studies that there's a huge, not a one to one, but a correlation between anxiety of the fear of the future and someone's social network. Because the stronger your social network gives you more comfort that tomorrow is going to be okay. And like it reduces your anxiety because you're like, I've got people around me that I can rely on.
Yeah, like, I feel like it's very human. Like, we need to help each other. Like, we just for me to get where I want to go, I need help.
Mhm.
And I think that's the same for anyone else. Like we need help from whether it's close friends to coworkers to just the Uber driver that gave me a ride to the airport. Like that's so we and that's so then it's like you can get into a bigger discussion around just, okay, how are humans really treating each other. So to me, I'm just focusing
Right.
on Sportiqe and how
Yep.
we can do that. And so the biggest thing around teamwork is trust. That we really hold trust as a key component of being on a team. And what I say to everyone is, give it. Just give it until you've learned otherwise from some experience, or someone did something to you to now maybe be more on guard or to maybe not trust. I say give it. I say give it. Right. And so I think by the very notion, when you say to someone, you need to, you need to earn my trust, you're telling them, I don't trust you.
Right.
And there could be found reason for that, but from starting from ground zero, give it.
Here's I want to experience share for a sec. So I learned this the really hard way. Is um so I have always done what you just described. I've always defaulted to trust first. I mean, it's like my life is way better. I mean, I just genuinely believe that. I completely echo everything you say,
Look,
Matt.
it goes back to the 80-20 rule. There's going to be 20 where you get burned.
Oh well,
But that 80 will be so
100%.
much better.
100%. And actually, people like when I meet
much better results going in that. Yeah.
right. When I like meet people like you, be like, how do you meet all these sweet people? I'm like, well, you missed all the crazy people I met to meet Matt. But but Matt, what was it, just to put an interesting twist to your comment is, because I have gotten burned like multiple times, like, and
Yeah,
it's
me
cost
too.
me emotionally, financially, and instead of, because I watched my dad go through this, like a front row seat, like you said, where he became like, he went from trusting and everybody taking advantage of him because he had the wrong expectations of people to then being cynical. And I was like, I don't want to be that either. But what I learned was, if you trust first, but you have a degree of awareness that there could be something that goes wrong, that's called courage, actually. So it's taking the courage to trust, knowing you could be bitten,
Yeah.
instead of where I will admit now that I was
Trust
naive
and
going,
verify.
yeah. And there's a reason that phrase is very popular. Like, I was like so trustworthy, and then I got bit a bunch because I didn't expect that to happen. I was like, that was my naivete playing in the fact where, like, but again, to your point, it's absolutely trust, but then the
But
courage
did
to
you
trust.
learn from that?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Do you still give trust?
Yeah, to your point. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep, absolutely. It's the courage to like not stop, but I'm just knowing that I could be bitten, but it's generally worth it if I'm aware that I could be and what the ramifications are.
Look, I mean, you not navigating, let's just call it business, it's no different, going into a jungle where there's all kinds of bugs and animals and
Same thing, right?
whatever. Like you can get bit at any time. So how aware are you? Have you created a good path? Are you aligning yourself again with the right people on team? And I think for Sportiqe, having these values helps us through the process of bringing people on the team, because is there good alignment? Because again, I think the challenge in growing any business and growing the culture, and if culture is important, as soon as you add one person onto the team, it completely now changes the dynamic. So
Everything.
did you change it for the better or not? And the goal
Hmm.
is, yeah, we want to change it for the better. That addition is going to bring something new and amazing to the team and the company because of what that person can bring.
So when you are a big and I know we'll be wrapping up here in a couple minutes, is like the Conscious Capitalism book. I mean, I came across it like 5 years ago. Listeners probably get sick of me talking about it, but I love it because it was one of those things where I was trying to reconcile the doing good and making money. And then I read that book and I was like, oh, this embodies all of it. So like, where did conscious capitalism insert its way into your journey, and how have you embraced it, and how does it
Well,
fit for you?
yeah. So for me, I came across conscious capitalism 2016, 17. And so we were maybe 18. We were already doing a lot of these things. I already
Okay.
was operating this way. So what conscious capitalism helped validate a number of things. And it helped maybe direct a couple of, things like, for example, one of our values is around integrity. And it's really one of the essences of that is really how are we creating win-win scenarios for our stakeholders. And so in conscious capitalism, stakeholder integration is important, and I think they actually use the same phrase, win-win-win, right?
When did the sixth
um,
power or fifth power or something like that, isn't it? Because there's like they kind of label the fact that there are six major stakeholders. I don't, I'm not an expert in it,
Well,
but
I honestly, I think anything that touches your ecosystem and the business is a stakeholder.
right.
So I think the very impactful ones are, your employees, your customers, and then supply chain partners or vendors to maybe owners, investors. But then I look at FedEx as a stakeholder. They're a big part of getting our products to people. Um, so I'm not engaged with them,
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
a day to day basis. But
But without them, your people are.
we went through a big process end of last year around our rates, and so again, win win. We weren't winning. We were not getting the rates that we should have been receiving. Now we are,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to continue to work with with FedEx. So, and I think that's, to me, a part of it. Like, if I've always say, if the company's winning, the team should be winning. And I think one thing when it comes to me around people and profit is people should be growing at minimum at the same plane as profits, right?
Mm.
Not putting profits first before people. And if understanding that people are the engine, it's people that are making the decisions, moving the company forward, that they should be on the same plane as profits, if not more. And I think what you see more so probably with publicly traded companies is stock price before people.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can figure out how to at least have people on the same plane as the stock price, I think it could be, that would change the equation dramatically for those businesses.
Well, and
And I think a lot of them do, but I think that becomes sometimes the short-term driving force to do something with the stock price, which will have long-term negative effects.
totally, and that's kind of goes back to our overarching point of what's the goal behind this, and it's the long term goal is not. I mean, those short term decisions have a negative impact in the long term ripple effect, and so like when you think about the conscious capitalism lens and all the mindfulness in the business of life that we've been talking about, like where would this manifest in like a decision that you've come across where because of this lens, it was an easier, obvious decision for you, where it might not have been if you had not had this kind of awareness or kind of
What
values,
do you mean?
like a trade off of like how to handle a situation in the business with a vendor or with an employee or customer or supplier, like we're like because of everything we've talked about for the last hour, you're approaching this in the problem in a certain way compared to what you I don't maybe I'm stretching here for a question, but I was thinking if you had not had the lens and everything that we've talked about, how you might see yourself acting just in kind of a default experience or default mode.
Related to conscious capitalism, or related to
Just the everything in the business of life, of like the mindset, the self-awareness, the stability, the kind of that feeling of contentness. And I mean,
so
conscious
if I
capitalism, right?
didn't have that, what would happen,
Like
or
what would
what
be like
would
like how a decision would be different, if you have this
wow, I
mindset,
mean,
or is it so
I don't
abundant
even
that
know if I
it's
want to go there, because I don't even know if I want to put energy towards towards
You don't want to think
even
about what Matt would be like in
creating
the other.
No, because I want to think about what Matt wants to continually to move forward to and get better at.
Okay, I'll pull that one. I'll pull that thread instead.
So
Why don't you describe why don't you describe that to us? Like, what does that picture look like that you're striving for?
continuous improvement as a person, me personally and professionally, and then aligning that with the business too. That everyone, I was asked a question, which might answer this one the other day, of what's the priority of the business right now. Like what's and my answer was the priority is for continuous improvement, for people within Sportiqe to really strive to be getting better, personally and professionally by that 1%. And I feel like if people are doing that and they're aligned with our values, then everything else will fall into place, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's product development, whether it's creative, whether it's operations and accounting and being more efficient with our capacity and quality control and things. Those all tie into a person getting better at their craft. And I think if we are focusing on and having a priority on people getting better, and people are owning and wanting to do that too for themselves, then great things are gonna take place.
It's I amen. I love it, and I think the last chapter of Conscious Capitalism talks about how people that are doing those types of things, their company's like 10x the other companies anyways. So at the end of the day, like you said, the profits actually take care of themselves because you're taking care of the right things.
Well, I mean, it was a big thing that helped. Like, I think values are really important, and they, because again, it goes back to behavior, goes back to how we communicate and how we make decisions. I can't stress that enough, because again, if you look at the business of your life, what are your values? Because that'll help shape how you're making choices, decisions. Who do you want to spend time with? Who you don't want to spend time with? There's a menu of a gazillion things that we as humans can be doing on this planet, but we only have 168 whatever hours in that week. What are we doing? So having a compass that can direct us, of where we want to go, is really important, and values is a big part of it. And I'll give you an example of how this really played out for Sportiqe with during the pandemic. Is when it happened is when anything really happens, big or small, I really like, okay, can I address this from our values? And so another value that we have 6. So another value is can do, really having a can do, attitude. And for me, having a can do attitude is about continuous movement, that we continue to move. And really, so when the pandemic happened, we asked ourselves that question: what can we do? And well, one of the things was we can be mindful. We can stay connected to ourselves, to our friends, to our family, our coworkers, to our customers. And I think staying connected was very important during that time,
kidding.
right?
Yeah.
To stay in touch, just have a conversation and touch base with people. We can. Part of being mindful is also just being smart with making sure we stay healthy. That we don't do anything crazy where we might get ourselves sick or someone else sick. Then we said we can make cool, comfortable clothes, because we can. And then we said, we can give back. And so from that, it sparked us to create a t-shirt that said "Together We Win." We launched it on our site and marketed it, and we had 100%. All the proceeds went to frontline healthcare workers relief in Arizona. And that was something that we could do. And I think that really helped us continue to move, right? Because I feel like everyone, especially in the first 2-4 weeks of the pandemic, were like
Paralyzed.
paralyzed. And so for us, I think it was really important to move. You know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Sportique's logo is the buffalo. And there's an amazing fact about the buffalo, and that is when a storm comes, the buffalo runs into the storm, right? And so all the other animals, the deers, the cows, the horses, the wolves, they run away from the storm. And just the genius and wisdom behind running into the storm is you get to the other side faster. You get to clear,
so awesome.
Clear blue skies, faster. And so that was kind of a mindset that we had. We're gonna face this head on. We're gonna go into the storm, and we're going to stay connected to our clients. Okay, the goal right now isn't to have to do transactions. It's just really to be relational and just to be there as a human to who we work with, on a regular basis. And so it was really about, maybe we were sharing recipes. My business partner was, had a friend who, a client who had, young kids just like him. They were sharing, recipes, how to do this, how to do that, and things of, that nature. And it became very human, to do that. But the buffalo analogy is super important because, in business and in the business of our life, which is our own personal life, we will face problems, plain and simple. And the faster that we can face them head on, the faster we'll get to the other side. Otherwise, those problems will chase us the rest of our life until we address them.
Oh, and it's just, that is just, I mean, what a great way to probably end this conversation. And it's so funny because I have in my notes right here, what's the deal behind the buffalo? And you answered it for me. And I'm like, how the hell did you figure that out, by the way? Like, I love the metaphor, the metaphor and the real, like everything you said, but how did you figure that out and gravitate towards it?
Well, I always knew that was a fact about the buffalo.
But I never knew that. Like, how in the hell did you figure that out?
I didn't know that when we had it as the logo. I didn't know that until.
Oh, really?
Later.
You had the logo first?
Yeah, we had the logo first, but the whole story behind the logo to begin with was just, we see it as a symbol of courage. And we were starting this company, and it takes a lot of courage to do that, and I just think it has a lot to do anything big in your life, whether it's just stopping to connect with your breath, which I will say takes a tremendous amount of
probably
courage.
More work than any other mechanical things.
So to me, that, that buffalo really, was a great symbol. It's rooted in Americana. And, that's what we were really looking to do, was just, be a really, modern American comfort wear, company, which is, what we are. And so we really liked what the buffalo stood for. And then learning later that this is a
so
fact,
awesome.
Was amazing. The other fact, which I did know when we launched the company, is the buffalo can run like 60 miles an hour and turn 90 degrees on a dime.
What?
And yeah, you can look that one up too.
I feel like I'm sitting down with my kids after school right now.
So to me, that's just like, that is so critical. Like, when you're starting a business, to be able to run, but then pivot and turn. And we've had to do that many
going 60 miles an hour too.
Yeah.
As a freight train of a buffalo, just oh, that is so awesome. Yeah. I think I might title the podcast.
It might be 40 miles an hour. I might have exaggerated the 60s. We can
it's more than me.
But all I will say, they can run really fast, and they can turn, really fast.
That is awesome. I'm just like, I think I might title the podcast "The Business of Life: Live Like a Buffalo," and not tell anybody why that is until the last part of the podcast. Matt, this has been, I don't know if my getting a little blurry. Matt, this has been Just such a joy, my friend. I could sit here and rally with you for hours, but we can't. We got to go back to the business of business for a little bit. What two final questions for you is the first one. I don't know if you want to answer it like I already gave you the answer, but the definition of intentional, because of the name of the show, and I love to hear people's thoughts on it. You can go ahead and rip out
Ooh.
your equation if you want again, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it has to do with focus. Yeah, I have up in our office we have a saying. It says your focus determines your reality, and think
Ooh,
I think
ooh,
that is where I would go with that answer.
yeah, I love it. Last question is, if people want to follow you, find Sportiqe, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can check us out at sportiqe.com, sportiqe.com. There's no U after the Q. You can follow us on Instagram on at Sportiqe. I'm on LinkedIn at Matt Altman. Yeah, and we're just really getting warmed up. I mean, we've been in business 17 years, but I feel like there's some really great, exciting things ahead of what we're going to do as a company to really help people be comfortable.
Matt, I gotta say too, as my last comment is, so many times I can like more than 50% of the times I hear how you just were like what could be said is I've been doing this for 17 years and it's just tired versus we're just getting warmed up because of I think that this whole conversation shows like how that one statement could be said in two different ways based on your mindset. And I think you just
Yeah.
summed it up very well, my friend. So I
Well,
can't thank you enough for the time.
yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Really enjoyed the conversation.